I'm gonna I just want y'all to know that people get mad with the preacher because they think the preacher done something they don't like. Well, the way you have to deal with that is this. Because people get mad with the preacher, and the preacher got discernment, and the preacher know when folks mad. Hope you know that. Hope they don't question my mind. But what has happened is the preacher has to do things and say things that people don't like. And people get mad with the preacher. What you got to do is when you get mad with the preacher, you got to take your Bible out. And you got to go in your Bible. And you got to find out what you mad about, you supposed to be mad about. And that's not only for the preacher, that's for anybody that the overseer is responsible for. When you get mad, you got to go in your Bible and you got to find out where your anger and your upsetness is justified. If it ain't justified through Scripture, then you the problem. And you know, it's a sad commentary. That's what people do. People get mad because, for whatever reason, sometimes you say something to them they don't like. Sometimes you do something they don't like. And when you in that category, it's about you being in control. Because when you got the title of overseer, that's what you are. You're overseer. You oversee the souls, and you giving instructions and you giving directions for the people. And sometimes the people don't like it. Sometimes the people get upset about it. Sometimes the people think they know better than the overseer. If that was the case, God would make you the overseer. And you just happen not to be. An overseer can't get out and just do all kind of godless, ungodly things, but as long as the overseer is in the scriptures, inside of scripture, then you got a problem. And when you run around with the problem and you can't see yourself, then somewhere in your life, God will give you something where you got so much to worry about and be concerned about. The overseer ain't even on your mind no more, unless you want to be prayed for. And so it's so important. It's kind of like the parent in the house. The parent is in there, and the kids in the house, sometimes they get mad with the parent. But the parent say do this or do that, or don't do this or don't do that. They get fighting mad with the parent. But guess what? The parent is in charge of the house. God made it that way. I saw somewhere back in Scripture in Isaiah where he was talking about how the youngsters were trying to lead the older folks. And it talked about it back here in Isaiah, I can't remember, I think it's in Isaiah 4 somewhere, between 1 and 4 somewhere it was in there written. It talked about how the younger folks were trying to take over and lead and tell the old folks what to do. They thought they had so much sense that they had gotten to a place where they could instruct the older folks and what kind of mess it was making because of it. And you see in today's times how you got young folks, they jump out here with this woke, I guess they call it, that's probably what they call it, the woke, they're woke. And they know more than the older folks know. Old folks trying to tell you, because they done walk this walk and they done been hard-headed in their life and they done bumped up against it. And they trying to tell you things to keep you from bumping your head, but you so smart that you don't want to hear it. And then you got to go tear all the skin off your head because you at one point were so woke. And so listen, this is a journey, and we all on this journey. And I think about from time to time how Jenny had I guess it was a joke or something. She heard somebody tell one time, and with this man, and he was at his mom's house. He said he wasn't going to church. What? I went.
If I remember correctly, he didn't. He said he wasn't going to church, and his mom gave him reasons why he should go to church, and I forgot what the reason was. The first reason I forgot. The second reason was because you're the pastor. You need to go. Yeah.
So he got so mad he didn't want to go. So the old city get mad like that too. Old city get mad don't want to go too.
Hey.
But you ain't got no choice. You got to go. I look over here calling in because you mad, he mad too. And he calling in, you calling in. Ain't nobody gonna be there. So you know we
the boss doing your job.
huh?
That's what the boss doing your job. They don't feel like coming in. They just don't come in either.
Yeah, see, well, you got to, we got to do this thing the right way. I mean, and we talk about that, Jahari Wonder from time to time, but there's some blind spots on us. And sometimes things come to show us that it's a part of you can't see. And relationships is what make you see what you don't see. And so you get all bent out of shape and all burnt out of shape. See, sometimes we as humans, we got this controlling spirit in us. We want to be in control. We want things just to go the way we want it to go. And when it don't go the way we want it to go, we get hot as fish grease on a Friday night. We mad. We want the whole world to know. Then we pout. We get in the corner and we pout. Nobody say nothing to us. Don't tell us nothing because I know it. And it's like I say. It ain't like you say. It's whatever God say. That's what He telling us in this word. You see, we still in Isaiah 5, and that's what Israel was. Israel was, they were some bad boys and girls, primarily boys. And God had gave them instructions. And they decided that they weren't going to do it that way. And then at one point, they were saying, let God come on and show us. Let God come on and show us. So now, my conversation to you is, when you found probably temper tantrum having little kids spouting having what you get drug down in that created problems in the family. Brothers and sisters don't like what mom and daddy did. They get together and now both of them, one of them they did something they got it, and now both of them mad with mom and dad. Don't work in the house like that. But mom and dad put both of y'all out. In the church, you got folks. That's how churches get torn up. You got folks that come in, put little stuff down, put little stuff out, because they got an issue, and you listen. Now you got an issue too, and now everybody in a mess. So just a word of advice, man. That came to my mind this morning because folk get mad with the preacher, and they say the preacher shouldn't have done that. The preacher don't do me like that. The preacher don't do nobody else like that. Why the preacher do that to me? The preacher trying to hurt me. No. Look in the mirror. If the preacher living right, the preacher ain't going to try to do you because God going to do the preacher if he do. And the other side of the coin is it ain't your job to correct the preacher. That's God's job to correct the preacher because it's God that put the preacher in place and gave the preacher instruction. And then the next thing you think about is, I'm going to move. I'm leaving. I've seen a whole bunch of that. They say, I'm leaving. I'm gone. And guess what? The church still go on.
You will be wherever you go.
Because God is, that's right. Because it's God's church. It ain't no man's church. And see, I think about all the time that message God gave me. It was years ago about all them flowers, them little green flowers we had across the front of the church. And I showed y'all that illustration. Everybody start off here and everybody jumping and happy and shouting, and then you go to this point and then all them guys back there jumping and shouting, they fall off here. And then everybody looking around at the ones that fell off back there and talking about them, and then we go to another place and now he's back here, some more of them fell off. The ones that still going, they still talking about the two groups that fell, and then you go here, and you got another group that fall off. See, as God progress you spiritually, you might not be able to see it from your natural eye, but when God progresses you spiritually, everybody ain't gonna go. See, it's gonna be some people, because see, as God progresses you spiritually, He working to you out of you. He working to us out of us. So as we move, we got to drop some stuff. And some folks get here, and they want to hold on to what they got. They think what they got is good. They got a fist grip on it. What they got is good, and they're all right. And then you move to another spot, and they still holding on to what they had back here. They ain't willing to let it go because they got a fist tied. They fist tight. And so while they got their fist tight holding on, and they got to this point, they're still looking back at these folks back here that done fell off. And then you move again spiritually, and the same thing going on. You fist tight. There's some things you think that you right in and you supposed to be in. God steady telling you with situations that come out of this trash. And because you think you know more than God now, which you won't confess that's that blind spot in you. You think you know more than God. You still hung up. You saying, hey, I'm right, I'm saved, I'm this great Christian, I'm the greatest Christian ever lived, and you can't tell me I ain't the greatest. But you steady looking at other folks and tearing other folks up about where they at and what they want to do, what they ain't listening to. Then somebody moving again. And you still back there holding. And after a while, with that loose fist you holding, you steady sliding backwards. While you looking back, you steady sliding backwards. And you headed right back there where all them folks that you despised what they was doing, you headed back there in that direction they headed. While you holding on and think you got it all in place. And Jesus is going to return, and some folk going to be caught up in that same old trash that He been trying to get them out of. When you say you got it, I got it. I got it. I got it. You got this deep truth. You got this deep truth. You tell everybody about they sins, but you can't see your own. That's a bad place to be. That's even for me. See, because I'm not excluded from slipping backwards if I don't keep watch on myself. And so it's important. We got to live this walk. This ain't a talk. Christianity is a lifestyle. It ain't just a talk. It ain't how much words you know. It ain't how deep you can study and get in the word. It ain't how well you can expound. It's about your walk. It's about how you walking, how you living. And you know what? When you living and you moving in God, you can see folk in stuff that they shouldn't be. You might ignore it. But you can see when folks didn't tell it, they're off course and they're off scale. You see it. You might not be able to see it to the depths, but you can see some stuff we ignore. I can look back over my life as a Christian in Gospel Tabernacle. There was some stuff some people were doing that, I was saying, well, give them the benefit of the doubt, and God would come along, the word would work it out of them, and it never did get worked out until they slid out. But there were some things there, some signs, some signs that there were some people in some places they shouldn't be. And so I learned over time, trying to give them the benefit of the doubt ain't going to save them. That's going to hurt them. You got to tell folks the truth, whether they like it or not. And so, as a preacher, I'm going to tell you, and you might not like it. And when I find out you don't like it, when I see you don't like it, and I thought about Elder Ragland, when I thought about that discernment, I was over there went over to Moore Church that night with him with some kind of meeting they had, and as Gospel Tabernacle usually do, they was late. And I was on time. He called me to go up there and lead the devotion service. And I got so mad, I was so hot. And I went on up there and led it, and just like I thought they would, when I started singing, they sung how they wanted to sing it. That's when they were doing the hymns. I'm doing the hymn how I know how to do it. They took the hymn over and did it how they want. They want to show me they're going to do it how they want to do it. Should have turned it out then, but I didn't. But I went ahead on, and next time I saw the rabbi, he said, when I call you to do the devotion, you got so angry. I ain't out with him. I ain't debated. Because he was right. I got angry. Kind of like I was, made me think about how he could see, like I thought about my mama, how my mama could see. Walked by me that time, she said, Brother Wayne, she don't want to call me by my first and middle name. Brother Wayne, the Lord told me you had something to do with that motorcycle being stolen. And she was right, God had paid me to steal it. And I let him steal it. That's when I was a bad boy in them days. Had a motorcycle I was tired of paying for. And the guy come out and asked me, could he steal it? He said, he paid me. And I said, yeah. And he gave me the money and I left it in front of the apartment I stayed at. And he came by and got it and headed that line. Ran out of gas on the road that line, went to get some gas, come back, it was gone. He was the only one lost. But my mama down in Jacksonville ain't nowhere near. Two people had that conversation, me and the guy that stole the motorcycle. And you know what happened? She told me that I had something to do with it. And what was I going to do? The Lord had done told her I had something to do with it because there ain't no other way she could have known. And so she knew. What was I going to say? No, mama. No. You know what I did? Got out of the house as quick as I could. Got away from her. Because if she had eyes like that, she could see everything. So that's how it is. It's all right. You get upset about anger with sin not. Get mad with the preacher if you may. But the preacher going to tell you the truth because the preacher love you. And you don't want to see your scalp peel back like a convertible. Because you're in your wrongdoing. I don't care if it's wife, son, daughter, grandchildren. I'm gonna tell you the truth. And my children know that. They can testify to that. They get wired up. Well, not both of them. One of them gets wired up. What you talking about?
You need to calm down.
I ain't talking about both of them. One of them get wired up and I can talk that something off the leg.
I've been telling black folks that got high blood pressure, need to calm down.
Still got a friend.
I know, right?
I reach up there, get down now.
I ain't gonna say something, I know what you're talking
Get down. Come on down off this thing before you fall and break your neck. So, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. And it all has to be from love. But you know what? I know my days are numbered. I got more days behind me than I do ahead of me. And you know, I think about my brother from time to time. You know, I know he up there on the other side, and I'm thinking, I'm wondering what he doing, and I wonder when I'm gonna meet that Saptop, and what he got going on, what he got to say, and how he doing, and what he gonna tell me when I see him again. See, so this thing is real to me. This ain't no toy. This ain't no play thing. This whole thing is real to me, and so I want to be right in the middle of it when the time comes. I think about often. I ain't never seen Jesus' face before, but I know I'm gonna see his face one day, and I gotta see his face in peace. He either gonna say, "Depart from me," or he gonna say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." So I can't be worried about how nobody feels about me and if they're upset with me, because the whole thing is, I'd rather you be mad than him to be mad. I'd rather you to talk bad about me than for him to talk bad about me, because if he talk bad about me, hell gonna be my portion. If you talk bad about me, you ain't got nowhere to put me. You can say all the ugly stuff you want, and it ain't gonna harm me. It just help me. And so that's the way that go down. But again, we in Isaiah 5, from 5 through 7. It was like the Lord, and it's like the Lord was like the prosecutor laying out his case for the prosecution that he was going to prosecute, laying out his case from Isaiah 5:1 through 5:7 of what Israel had done and the violent wickedness, the overview of the violent wickedness that they had been into, and he was saying he's gonna prosecute them and they're gonna go down. He was saying what he done, how he put them in place, the greatness that he done for them, how he set them up, and what he was expecting in return. And through his expectations, he found out that it wasn't nothing good out of his expectations. So it was really a waste of time for him to expect something out of them, because they proved that whatever he expected, it wasn't going to be. It was going to be how they wanted it to be. And now this particular passage is exclusive to Israel, because this is what God done to them. This is what God sent the word through Isaiah to them, and what he was going to do to them for what they had done. But when you read this, it's just like way back then they was talking about the world today. And I thought about it's just about the greediness and the selfishness and the wickedness of man, how since man's existence, it really hadn't changed. You get a crew and some folks are led and they follow instructions and directions and come back, and you got folks back to the same thing. But when they decide they want to do their own thing, way back then, it's just like it is today. So when God laid out through Isaiah 5:1 down through 5:7, after that, he told about the judgment, how he was going to judge them, and there were six things that he was judging them for. He was letting it know in the beginning that he was going to judge them, and then what he had done and the reason why he was going to judge them, and then he laid out the specifics of the judgment. And it has six judgments down through here, which the Bible called woes. One was selfish greed, two was drunken conduct, three was mockery at God's power to judge their sins, four was distortion of God's moral standards, five was arrogance and pride, and six was perversion of justice. So this is what Israel was into. And this is why God laid out the case in 5:1 through 7 that he was going to judge them. And you look at the world today, again, and it's like a carbon copy in here of what's going on. So when you get down to 5 and 8, it say, "Woe to you who add house to house and join field to field, till no space is left, and you live alone in their land. The Lord Almighty has declared in my hearing, surely the great houses will become desolate. The fine mansions left without occupants. A 10-acre vineyard will produce only a bath of wine, a home of seed, only an ephod of grain." That was the first woe. That was about the selfishness and greed that they had. When he talked about these houses being backed up house to house, at this point in time in Israel was agricultural haven. It was about planting plenty, and they wineries and vineyards. The guys that had them never had enough. So what they did was they worked a small man. They set up wicked, foul situations to take the property of the small man, because they wanted bigger vineyards. They wanted bigger mansions. They wanted to have more. So the little guy was caught up in the middle of that. And whatever kind of laws and wicked, corrupt stuff they was doing, it was to crush him. They had no concern for him. And I think about that today, as I said Wednesday night. You look today and you look out on the waters of A1A down there. It's just one place I pass by a lot, going fishing. And it used to be you could go down to the water at any point down that park side of the road and go down to the water and fish. Well, they done bought up all this land, and they got all these properties backed up back to back, back to back. So you only got now a couple of places that you can go down on A1A and fish, or get to the water to fish. All along A1A headed to down to Ponte Vedra, past that Ponte Vedra area. Everywhere that they don't have houses, mansions and stuff backed up on the land, on the water, they got no parking sign side the road. There's no houses there. There's nothing there. But they got no parking beside the road. So that means the little guys that want to be able to get out there, don't have them big Boston Whaler boats and all that trash, can get out there and ride the water. They got all that stuff, no parking signs down there so you can't park. Then you get on down there further, and they got boat ramps. I mean, not boat ramps. They got places where they call state parks. They got state parking, and so you get to go in that parking, and then they got that set up how they want to set that up to get down to the water and stuff. But all the miles and miles of road down through there, the little man can't get down through there because they got it blocked off. And then when you get past all that and get back in the houses, they got the houses backed up, house to house, house to house. And then the government was talking about, the city government was talking about now taking that land, every homeowner, and making that his property from his backyard down to the water. So you can't go on his property and fish because it's so all the places the houses backed up. You can't go in there and fish. And that it gave me a clear picture of how it was with Israel with this agriculture. They took these people land. You remember God gave when they came out of Egypt and went into the promised land, God gave land by families, and he said that was supposed to stay in the families and not be taken or sold to anybody else. So they come up with these lavish schemes and plots to take these folks' land and build these houses. But God told them through Isaiah that surely, in verse 9, the Lord Almighty has declared in my hearing, Isaiah said, surely the great houses will become desolate. Divine mansions left without occupants. A 10-acre vineyard will produce only a vat of wine. A homer of seed, only an ephah of grain. God said in these two verses, I'm going to send a drought. All that land you done stole, 10 acres, all that land you done planted, all that work you put in looking for this big harvest, I'm going to send a drought, and you only going to have a smidgen of wine and a smidgen of seed. Because in other words, I saw what you're doing, and I'm going to step in here, and I'm going to disappoint you in your wickedness. Right in the middle of your wickedness, I'm going to disappoint you by droughting the land where nothing grows, no water on the vineyard, on the vine, and they're going to dry up. And you're going to have a little of nothing for all that wicked effort you put in to take these people's land. He told Isaiah that that's what he was going to do. Now, why is this in the Bible? Why do we need to know what God did to Israel way back then? It's been done and it's over with. God put this in the Bible as an example to us, to the human. See, when you get all stressed out about what man and people doing to you, it's a waste of time and effort. Because God already got it set what he going to do to the folks that's doing all this stuff to you. And so when you all out here hot in the collar and mad and upset with folk about what they're doing, it's a waste of time because God has already written in and showed us by example. I'm sitting up here watching Israel. These are my people. And if I let my people get away with this trash, surely I'm not going to let the rest of the time go by and I'm not going to punish them. And so when you got selfish greed going on, as a worldly man or as a Christian, what you need to know and understand from Isaiah 5, 8 through 10, that God got judgment. God will judge you for your sin. And ain't nobody going to get away. So what that does, when you fully understand that and you fully accept that, you know what that do for you? That gives you a release. That gives you a release from being all balled up and matted up and tied up inside because of what somebody's doing to you. Because we spend more time stressed out about what somebody's doing to us than anything else in the world. Oh, they did this to me. Oh, they did that to me. And like I was saying earlier, sometimes it's you and not them anyway. But God got a time set in judgment for folks that do stuff they ain't got no business. Now, the Christian ought to be able to read and study the Bible and understand I ain't going to get away with this trash, so as a Christian, I ain't going to be into this kind of stuff because I know God going to come through and He going to bring the smoke. But if you are half-hearted and you ain't into it, you feel like you got to fight all your own battles, then this don't mean nothing to you. This just some history to you, so you can go out and talk to somebody else about it. You know, I was reading, God did this and did that to Israel because, you know, the Israel was wicked. You know, you can impress people about what you done read in the Bible. This here is to be an example of us to let us know, hey, look, you get caught up in wickedness, I'm coming to get you. I'm not going to let you get away. And this ought to help put the fear of God in our heart that if we do stuff we ain't got no business, God gonna bring it back to us. Now the second woe is about drunken conduct. And when we think about drunken conduct, you might think about, oh, you know, you just go out and get a drunk driving, or you go out and get drunk and they go out and get drunk and that's what they do. Well, you know what? When people go out and get to drinking, they go out and people get these go out and plot these wicked plans and over a beer or two or over some fine wine. They get together and
Whiskey.
Whiskey. Yeah, well, they do whiskey and fine. See, they you know, when they're really extravagant, they like to get wine that's been they say fermented for 100 years. You got the labels on how long, and, you know. You go over in them European countries and they got wine strung out, wineries all over the place, and they took that wine, put it in them old 55 gallon wooden barrels and got the cork in it and all that. They just sit around for years and years. But what they do is they get over a drink and they come up with a plot and do a lot of vile, wicked stuff. You got these big boys, they go out to these big dinners, these steakhouses, and eat that half-raw meat and scheme and plot on how they're going to take stuff from folks. But just like the ones I was just talking about, they come up with the idea of how to keep people off the beaches down there. They say, okay, look, we can do an ordinance here, and we can put this ordinance out, and we can have people's land that run down to the water, and we can keep all them off the beaches, and people can sit up in their house, and people out at the water and don't have to look at them down there. All that's what they do. They do that over drinks. And so when he talked about that, that's when he talked about that drunken conduct. This is the second woe. He said, woe to those who rise early in the morning to run after their drinks, who stay up late at night till they are inflamed with wine. They have hearts, so they can get some parties going on too. They have harps and lyres, and they have banquets, tambourine, and flutes, and wine, but they have no regard for the deeds of the Lord, no respect for the work of His hand. Therefore, my people will go into exile for lack of understanding. Their men of rank will die of hunger, and their masses will be parched with thirst. Therefore, the grave enlarges its appetite and opens its mouth. Did I skip something? No. And opens its mouth without limit. Into it will descend their nobles and masses with all their brawlers and revelers. So man will be brought low, and mankind humble, the eyes of the arrogant humble. But the Lord Almighty will be exalted by His justice. By His justice. So he's saying these folks get up early in the morning, drinking that juice, all into the night, drinking that juice, putting on big parties and banquets, drinking that juice, have no redeeds for no regard for the deeds of the Lord, no respect for the work of His hand. And so he said for that cause they're going into exile. So now, when I read this part about this, each time I read over it, I think about Romans 1 and 18. I think it is down down to the end. How God turned man over, and to me, it clearly shows up from what they're doing here, how they got this going here, where this come from here. It clearly shows up in that passage how God is still watching man, judging man, handling man, because man disrespect the work of his hands, and that's what it's saying here. Therefore my people are going into exile for lack of understanding. Their men of rank will die of hunger, and it's all because of what they have done. They drank, they get inflamed with that alcohol, and they don't just get inflamed with the alcohol and go home and lay down and go to sleep. They got other stuff going on behind the scenes when they are drinking that juice. They got their big banquets and stuff. And so he tell them, he even talk about in 14, therefore the grave enlarges his appetite. They just dying off from this stuff. They ain't just doing it and going. They dying off. Many of them just dying off from the things happening. They just dying off from this stuff. The word says. This is what God told Isaiah about these wicked Israelites. So therefore the grave enlarges his appetite and opens his mouth without limit. Into it will descend their nobles and masses with all their brawlers and revilers. So it says that all these folks that's up there doing and steeped in this wickedness, drinking this juice, he said they're going to die off. So he's going to bring them low. He's going to humble mankind. He's going to humble the eyes of the arrogant. But the Lord Almighty will be exalted by his justice. So God's saying, all this evil, vile, wicked stuff they got going on, he's saying, I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to deal with these folks. So then, if God going to deal with these folks, why are we so stressed out about it? Yeah, people on the job taking your money, working you like a slave, don't want to pay you, don't want to give you no benefits, want to cut every corner they can. When you look at America today, they had 4.5 million people. Was it last month before last, walk off the job. See, these rich boys been sitting up giving these CEOs 20, 30, 40, $50 million in these companies and working these people down 15, 10, $7 an hour, whatever they could take from them, and getting all this money to these CEOs, and then turn around after they're giving a bunch of money to the CEOs, they're stacking up their investors' pockets. And the reason why they've been doing this for so long, because in their wicked, vile, jacked up minds, they thinking that the poor man gonna show up. They're banking on the fact that the poor man gonna show up every week and go to work because he got to get paid. See, they never expected that the poor man was going. These folks in our generation, they never expected that the poor man was going to say, "Man, I ain't going back over there on that job for that trash that they got." They never thought it was going to be a great awakening. They've been running around talking about, well, we can't afford to pay that, and if we raise the pay up to $15 an hour, we can't. We gonna go out of business, and we just can't handle it, and we just can't do it. Now folks walking on the job 1,000 miles an hour, and they got signs up saying they're gonna pay what they said they couldn't pay. What now going on that you can pay what you said you couldn't pay before? We're gonna crash your business.
Right. But you can pay it now.
Right. While the prices are higher.
And it's a season. It's a season for people who've been looking for certain jobs. Because I've never seen the post office recruit people. They had a family and friends day. 3 times they sent me an email. It's a season.
But they said they couldn't afford to pay people $15 an hour. Cause if they paid $15 an hour, all the small businesses will go under. Let me tell you something else about this. Let me tell you something else about this small business thing that they got. They pull the wool over a lot of people's eyes, and people buy this okie doke and they fall for it. When they say small business, what these millionaires, big time millionaires and billionaires do, they take their companies and break them down 75, 80, 90, 100 workers, and they call that small business. And so when you hear them talking about small business, what the unlearned man think is when they talk about small business is these people with 3, 4 people in the company. You saying, well, they ain't pay them $15 an hour. You see these grass trucks running around out here. They have to pay them $15 an hour. And them boys take the advantage of that small business phrase. Burger King, McDonald's. McDonald's said we done had over 1 billion sales. They said that years ago. Over 1 billion sales. And they've been working them people like slaves. They put kids on the payroll, hire kids to come and get on the payroll so they don't have to pay. That's why your service so shabby.
Yeah.
They put kids on the payroll, work them part-time so they don't have to give them full-time benefits. They put very few full-time workers on so they don't have to give you full-time benefits. That's been the scam. That's what they've been doing for years and years and years. But they say we can't afford to pay minimum wage, $7.25. Who in this world can live on $7.25? To go get a gallon of gas now is $3 and something.
And God forbid you have babies that you can't take care of while you're at work because you got to figure out somebody, and those people are going to charge you more than you get an hourly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I'm saying is, when you look at this word here now, that's been in this Bible for thousands of years, and you look at what's going on in the world now, God's saying, I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to take care of it. I see them. I know what they're doing. And I got a time set when I'm going to give them some shock treatment. Now, the people that couldn't pay for $7.25 an hour just 10 months ago got signs out for cash register workers, we give you $11 an hour. You come back here and throw some meat on the grill and stuff, we give you $12 an hour. But just 9 months ago, we couldn't do that. What changed?
Now the minimum wage is $10 an hour.
No, they're not legally.
Yeah,
They talked about taking it up, but they've been.
No, they already said it done $10 an hour.
No, they got to go through government. Government got to declare that. You got people, you got jobs out here themselves that's paying that, but the minimum wage, the government minimum wage is still sitting at $7.25 an hour. You got some states, California and other places like that, because cost of living is so high.
Yeah, it's so high in California.
They've set their minimum wage up. But this is what evil, vile, wicked men do. And you know what? They don't just come in the store one day and say they don't have a franchise that just come in the store one day and say, well, I'm just gonna start charging keep them at $7 an hour. No. They go and have them a banquet and they get all juiced up. And in there, that's where they set these schemes and plots up at. We all stay together. We all hold it together. Kind of like the people out there striking with John Deere now.
Yeah.
They got together. They say, hey, look, we all got to go together because if one or two of us go, they're going to pluck us. Mm-hmm. So look, they wasn't drinking no wine because they had no money to drink. Now, look, let's just get together and we can put the squeeze on them and eventually they're going to break. And guess what they getting ready to do? Right? 1-9.
That's right.
And so what happens is they work in these systems while these guys scheming and plotting. They work these systems to keep the little man divided and at one another's throat, while the big boys stay together up there and they rob folks blind. They take your stuff. Mom and dad done worked like slaves and got stuff and died and went on and passed it on to you, and they working overtime to take that stuff. I looked at that thing Cookie showed me this morning. That's what they're trying to do with Greenland. If they can downplay it and make it to be a nothing.
They call it a lost town.
Yeah.
Greenland.
Yeah.
Never heard nothing all my years about Greenland until now my son-in-law found it. And he said, my daughter, And she said to me, I thought somebody was playing on my phone until I started reading about Greenland.
Hey,
And started calling the streets out there.
hey. If Greenland's so poor and run down, why they got them houses $300,000 and all that stuff out there?
32256 by itself is enough. The zip code is enough. Like I said.
If it wasn't no money in it, why I get 1,000 calls on my phone talking about buying that property I got out there?
Or sending me all the emails about they out of town, do we want to sell it?
If they trying to invest, that means it's worth something. They ain't going to no ghost town and try to invest nothing.
They buy it
But see-
residential and sell it commercial.
What they do is they buy low
And sell big.
and sell high.
And take that land and subdivide it into so many teeny tiny pieces, put a 2-story on there and knock heads off.
A lot 50 foot wide and 60 70 foot deep. And put a $300,000 house on there.
2 of them.
Now they gonna put on one on that 50. If they try to put 2 of them on there, they're gonna have a mess on their hand. But I'm saying this is what they do. This is what corruption do. This is what men with that drunken conduct, they go get drunk and this is how they plot. But what motivates that is that selfish greed that's in them. Don't care what the value is. Kind of like I had a man up there at the Toyota place. He asked me. He called me on the phone. He said, "I see you had your truck in here today." He said, "I want to buy your truck." I said, "You can't buy my truck." He said, "Well, you mean to tell me I can't offer you enough money to buy your truck?" I said, "Well, let me put it to you like this." I said, "My brother used to work for Toyota up here." I said, "This is the last truck he sold me before he passed away." I said, "You think he could buy my truck?" He said, "No, I don't think I can buy your truck." And he hung the phone up. But see, these people think they can wave and flash a little money at you,
That's what they think.
and you will sell your soul.
Some of them do.
Well, that's true, because there's a lot of black folks that sold a lot of land. Greenland used to be,
Nothing but black. And the map downtown, they call it the color section.
it says for color, at the top of the original city map, it said for colors only, because they strategically placed black folks around Jacksonville so they wouldn't have them all bunched up together. They had some in Greenland, they had some in Loretta, they had some in Sunbeam, they had some in what used to be Mandarin, over there on State Road 13. They strategically placed them so you couldn't get together and talk.
And Bayard.
Bayard, yeah. So that's what these people have been scheming and plotting. But see, what I want you to know is the scheme ain't new. It's an old scheme. The Bible saying nothing new under the sun.
Yes,
So they're plotting. That's what these people back thousands of years ago, Israel, that's what they was doing. So it ain't nothing new. That's why God destroyed the world under Noah and watched all them folks all up them trees, watched them out them trees and stuff, because he said, man, every inkling of man's heart was wicked, and it grieved him that he even made man. And so man's still up to his same old stuff. And you know what? For us to get caught up in that stuff with him, it's a terrible thing. I had one send me a thing the other day talking about he wanted to buy some land and all that, and when I told him what it was, he sent me back and told me that I know anybody else that wanted to sell some land.
That's exactly what they do.
I told us after I said, "Listen, man," I sent him a text. I said, "Listen, you looking for a gift. Ain't nobody gonna give you nothing. And you need to understand one thing. Ain't no more dirt coming on the scene." I ain't heard nothing else from him. The third woe is about mockery at God's power to judge them. And so what it says here in verse 20, verse 18. Woe to those who draw sin. Woe to those who draw sin along with cords of deceit and wickedness as with cart ropes. To those who say, "Let God hurry. Let him hasten his work so we may see it. Let it approach. Let the plan of the Holy One of Israel come so we may know it." you're pretty bold to talk that kind of trash back to God.
Hmm.
He says, each of them, woe to those who draw sin along with cords of deceit and wickedness, as with cart rope. These folk got this stuff all up on them, and they got their deceitful ways, and they steeped in wickedness, and they got their plans all tied up and roped off together. To those, verse 19, to those who say, let God hurry, let him hasten his work. So they kind of like they taunt God. They got all this evil, wickedness, deceit going on. And when they get told about it, they say, let God show me. I want to see. Let God come on and do what he's going to do so I can see. Let God hurry up. See, the prophet telling them, giving them instructions on what God say, and the way they respond to the prophet is, well, let God go and do what he's going to do. You run around and tell me what God going to do. Let God come on. I want to see what God going to do. Let God come in a hurry. Let God show me what he's going to do. And it's kind of like that old smoke train. Choo choo. And here come God on the track with smoke. And then when God hit, everybody want to get praise for him. Isn't that amazing? People do their own thing, talk their bigoted talk, walk around with their chest stuck out in rebellion, and then when God comes, they want somebody to pray for them. Pray for me. Mm. And Scripture tells us, he said, whom God cursed, can no man bless. And who God blessed, can no man curse. And when you push God over the edge, you got a problem on your hand. And that's why we as Christians, you better be careful. Because you can get yourself in a place where you push God to a place where he didn't want to go. And when he decides that now it's time for me to prove to them that I ain't no joke, you got a problem. Verse 20 say, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. These are folks that distorts God's moral standards. They swap everything around. God got a moral standard that he done set in place. And what their aim is to confuse it and turn it on its head and get it to a place where they get to decide, man get to decide what's right and wrong, what's good and what's evil. It says down here in this breakdown, it says, on the one hand, society often exalts sin by calling depravity manly strength, or calling immorality and perversion true virtue and commendable freedom. On the other hand, society opposes righteousness by calling it evil. Note these two common examples where this pattern occurs. Sexual perversion, e.g. homosexuality and lesbianism, is called a legitimate alternative lifestyle that should be openly accepted, while opponents of such conduct who accept the biblical standards of sexual immorality are called bigots who perpetrate oppressive prejudices. That's what they say. If you don't roll with the homosexuality, you're a bigot. These are the ones calling good evil and evil good, who call darkness light and light darkness, who call bitter sweet and sweet bitter. That's what they're doing. Distortion of God's moral standards. God done set a standard, they come behind God and do another. The second thing is pro-abortion advocates are called sensitive, persons with a deep commitment to the rights of women, while active pro-life supporters are called extremists or religious fanatics. Believers, however, must commit themselves wholeheartedly and irreversibly to God's standard of good and evil as revealed in his written word. So what it's telling us here, whatever God say is settled law. It ain't no more going behind God and because it's the prevailing will or thought of man that's in place now. This is about what God say is. And even if you don't like it, you can't change it. And so Scripture telling us, whatever God say, if you say you God's child and you're going to live with God forever, you're going to do what he say. Or you're going to burn in the bowels of hell. So you still got people today running around trying to distort God's moral standards. Look, this was happening way back there in Isaiah's time. Way back there, thousands of years ago, they were still doing the same thing, trying to flip God's moral standard. Man haven't given up. You know why? Because the devil himself is the one behind this, and he uses man to try to turn over and destroy what God's standards of life is. You know, like he told Eve, God said you will surely die if you eat from that tree, when you eat from that tree. And he came back and said, you won't surely die. So God called it one thing. When God speaks it, it's the law. The devil come through behind man and try to reverse that and speak it to be something else. But God's saying, when you distort my moral standards, I got a problem with that. You go down to verse 21 is the fifth woe. He said, woe to those who are heroes at drinking wine and champions at mixing drink, who will acquit the guilty for a bribe, but deny justice to the innocent. Therefore his tongues of fire lick up straw, and as dry grass sinks down in the flames, so their roots will decay. God said, I got something for them too. When they reject my law, when they do their thing, it said when they talk about rejecting the law, it said Isaiah teaches the doctrine. Listen to this. Isaiah teaches the doctrine of just retribution for sin. Rejecting God's laws and despising his word will result in people being given over to the consequences of their sins and to divine punishment. So he said, when you reject God's law, you're going to get smoked. Be it individual or be it whole nation. Where's America at right now? Rejecting God's law. They got Don Duck and all his crew running around and they done flipped the law and they saying God put him up there back there such as a time, and now they're going to lie about how he got what happened to him, and they just gone. But God got a time spent for that too. Now, we can take this truth as it is, or we can play with it. When you what verse 21 say, woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and clever in their own sight, that's arrogance and pride. I mean, you arrogant. You got your own mind made up on how it is and what it is, and can't nobody tell you nothing. You just got it. You're going to run this thing. You're going to run it all right. But it ain't going to feel good in the end. Arrogant. Pride. Can't nobody tell you nothing. You got it all down pat. God's saying, I got something for that too. I got something for arrogance and pride. And then, again, 22. Woe to those who are heroes at drinking wine, champions at mixing drink. And this is one of them places where it talks about how when people out here drinking and doing their thing, and it talks about champions at wine, they drinking and stuff. This is another area where it talks about how that sin of drunken and drugs, how it God don't even have to come and weigh in on that. It destroys the consumer of it itself. See, God don't have to come in and judge drug addicts or alcoholics, because what it does is it consumes the individuals itself. It'll burn you out. It'll do destructive stuff to your body, whether you believe it or not. It'll do that stuff to your body. It'll burn brain cells. Then if you got kids, you got family. Your kids see you smoking, they don't smoke. Kids see you drinking, they don't drink. Kids see you saying it's all right to have leisure drinks. They're gonna pretty much do the same thing. If you got an inner circle of people, you might not be a drinker or a smoker or a drug user, but if you got an inner circle of people and your kids and stuff see that become okay. It become a monkey see, monkey do type thing. So they see it and they see your circle partying and saying, having a good time with it. They come along and they pretty much eventually get involved with the same thing. And what happens when people again get in this leisure world of drinking and doing their thing, what usually happens is this thing talks about how they pervert justice. And I thought about this because I was looking at TV a few times, and I saw this lawyer, maybe listening to it on the radio. And this lawyer was on there advertising. It was two of them, two different ones, a lady and a man. The man was on there advertising, if you drink and you blow, they can do ABC to you. So know before you blow. In other words, don't blow in the thing when the police pull you over, because they could kill your license and all this stuff. The lady was talking about, she was called the queen of getting people off for DUIs and stuff. Now here's what's jacked up about that. You telling folks to know before they blow, they ought to know before they drink. Ought to be your motto. Don't drink and drive. You got this woman over here talking about how many people she done got off. That's vile and wickedness. Because here's what happened. You got people go out here and kill people with cars and car accidents because they're drunk driving. And the highest charge they can get is manslaughter. You go out there and shoot somebody with a gun, you can get a murder charge. But both of them took a life. So why should, because you think that drinking and driving shouldn't carry or as heavy a sentence when people go out and drink and drive because that's what they want to do. People go out and kill because that's what they want to do. Both of them take a life. Both of them turn families upside down. Why should one be treated any less than the other? It's because the rich, casual drink boys that's out there drinking and partying together, they're doing the same thing. And they want to be able, and the people in their circle, and they want them to be able to get off the hook when they're doing stuff they ain't got no business, like that, down that line. But the man that's doing the murdering, they want him to go on if he ain't one race killing another race, and you know what I'm talking about. they want them to be able to get off the hook. And so that's what it's talking about, the perversion of justice. This the drinking crew here that perverts justice. I don't want to see no justice done. They're kind of like that lady up there up the road there in Georgia where they getting ready to have that trial now. These guys go out here and gun this black boy down like an animal in the street. And she covered it up.
She hides the information.
And this guy down here was killed before George Floyd was. And when that thing with George Floyd blew up, that's how they come back and eventually got this thing here and dug it open and found out what they had done and began to scrutinize. But she was there, and that was one of her good old boys that was doing investigations for her, and that's what they was doing. And that's how these people set up, drink, casual drinks at the dinner table or at the restaurant and pervert justice.
Make deals.
because I know she didn't go. I know they didn't go to her house and sit down with her husband and probably there and come up. That they wasn't gonna charge them and how they were gonna get over. They probably went to the office and then left the office and went to the restaurant or the bar. And that's how they came to the conclusion of what they were gonna do.
They caught up with her.
Huh?
I said caught up with her. Now they don't even talk about her since she went to jail.
Yeah, they talking about charging her.
Now they're hot and heavy on these three.
But you know, this word talked about these 6 different areas of judgment that God was going to judge these people. And again, as I read through this, I look at today and what kind of situation we're in this world today. And how so many people really want to just do things their way. Don't want to be told nothing. Want to be in charge, want to be the shot caller, just handle my business. And it's just a sad commentary. Because if God can't set the standards and he allowed man to set them, man is just as corrupt as he want to be. And now when you got a corrupt man trying to set moral standards, God tells us that we can't see the whole ins and outs of whatever situation is going on, but he can. We don't know what a man's heart is. We don't know what's going on inside a man's heart. But God can. And God knows. And God knows just what to do to squeeze a man to get his attention. So going down here again in 24, therefore his tongues are foul, look up straw, and as dry grass sinks down and in flames, so their roots will decay. I mean, God said he's going to destroy them. All this wicked stuff you got going on, he's going to destroy. He says, so their roots will decay, and their flowers blow away like dust. For they have rejected the law of the Lord Almighty, and spurned the word of the Holy One of Israel. Don't want God's word, rejected God's word. Therefore the Lord's anger burns against his people. His hand is raised, and he strikes them down. The mountains shake, and the dead bodies are like refuse in the streets. That's how them Jews was killed up by the Syrians, different ones. Yet for all this, his anger is not turned away. His hand is still upraised. He lifts up a banner for the distant nations. He whistles for those at the ends of the earth. Here they come, swiftly and speedily. Not one of them grows tired or stumbles. Not one slumbers asleep. Not a belt is loosened at the waist. Not a sandal thong is broken. Their arrows are sharp. All their bows are strong. And their horses' hoofs seem like flint. Their chariot wheels like a whirlwind. Their roar is like that of the lions. They roar like young lions. They growl as they seize their prey and carry it off with no one to rescue. In that day they will roar over it like the roaring of the sea. And if one looks at the land, he will see darkness and distress. Even the light will be darkened by the clouds. So, when he talked about the distant nation, it said Isaiah describes Judah's coming destruction by a distant nation. It was imminent and certain, and Judah would have no power to repel the enemy. Isaiah undoubtedly foresaw the invasion of the Assyrians, whose armies plundered Judah in 701 BC, and the Babylonians who began aggression in 605 BC. God has often used other nations to punish the apostasy of his people. So he's saying God used folk from the outside to punish his people. When he gets tired, he decides it's time for judgment. He don't play no games. And as you read down there and you see what he's talking about, he talks about how well equipped these armies to take over his people is at that time and were. They came ready. They was dressed and ready and fit for battle, and wasn't nothing Israel could do. So when you push God to a point where He got to deal with you, we as humans, what God sent against us, we can't stand it. And so it's up to us whether we heed God's warnings, hear His word, or we just keep on going on doing our own thing. Because I look at, again, the world today and how things are going in the world and how people just run and push and fight to have their way. And how God is saying no and man is saying yeah. God said go back the other way. Man said no, I'm going this way. And God is going to hold all of mankind accountable. And so we can run and think, we getting away. We can think we can outsmart God, and we won't say it in that sense that I'm smarter than God. God can't do this to me, or God can't beat me doing that. But what happens is, in our doings and our dealings, that's the message to God. We keep on doing what we're doing. That's actually what we're saying to God. I'm running this. I'm going to do this, God. And eventually, time run out on us. Mercy endure forever. But time won't run out. And so I don't want to be on the wrong side of God. And that's why I try to live this thing every day the way this book tells me to live it. Because I do know God got a return date that we none know. And it's up to us about if we're going to be ready or not, if we're going to take it serious enough, or we're going to be serious about knowing that Jesus is going to return here one day, or if that's just cliche off our lips, oh, Jesus is soon to return, but we don't truly believe it. Because if I truly believe it, that He's going to return, it's going to call for a response down inside of me that makes it known to me by my actions and deeds that He's going to come. And when He come back, He ain't going to be playing no game. And so over in Matthew 23, He talked about the sins of the Pharisees, and He had them woes. And He talked about 7 woes with that. And when you go down and look at that, it's kind of amazing. Jesus did the same thing over here. He himself, from 23 and 1 down to 23 and 12, he laid out what was happening. And let me just read that right quick. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to His disciples, the teachers of the law and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So you must obey them and do everything they tell you. But do not do what they do. For they do not practice what they preach. They tie up heavy loads and put them on men's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them. Everything they do is done for men to see. They make their
phylacteries
wide, and the tassels on their garments long. They love the place of honor at banquets and the most important seats in the synagogues. They love to be greeted in the marketplace and to have men call them rabbi. But you are not to be called rabbi, for you have only one master, and you are all brothers. And do not call anyone on earth Father, for you have one Father, and He is in heaven. Nor are you to be called teacher, for you have one teacher, the Christ. The greatest among you will be your servant. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever will humble himself will be exalted. Then he started with a woe. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You shut up the kingdom of heaven in men's faces. You yourselves do not enter, nor will you let those enter who are trying to. Woe to you, teachers of the law, and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You travel over land and sea to win a single convert, and when he becomes one, you make him twice as much a son of hell as you are. Woe to you, blind guys! You say, if anyone swears by the temple, it means nothing, but if anyone swears by the gold in the temple, he is bound by his oath. You blind fools! Which is greater, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? You also say, if anyone swears by the altar, it means nothing, but if anyone swears by the gift on it, he is bound by his oath. You blind man! Which is greater, the gift or the altar that makes the gift sacred? Therefore, he who swears by the altar swears by it and by everything on it. And he who swears by the temple swears by it and by the one who dwells in it. And he who swears by heaven swears by God's throne and by the one who sits on it. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give a tenth of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law: justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. You blind guys! You strain out a gnat or swallow a camel. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee! First clean the inside of the cup and dish, and then the outside also will be clean. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside, full of dead men's bones, everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside, you appear to be people as righteous, but on the inside, you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You build tombs for the prophets and desecrate the graves of the righteous. And you say, if we had lived in the days of our forefathers, we would not have taken part in them in shedding the blood of the prophets. So you testify against yourselves that you are the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up then the measure of the sin of your forefathers. You snakes, you brood of vipers. They have pissed Jesus off. How will you escape being condemned to hell? Therefore I am sending you prophets and wise men and teachers. Some of them you will kill and crucify, others you will flog in your synagogues and pursue from town to town. And so upon you will come all the righteous blood that has been shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. I tell you the truth, all this will come upon this generation. I tell you, you ought to be able to read that and tell Jesus ain't nothing to play with. And for all them folk that think Jesus was a weak preacher, you need to refer them to Matthew 23 and tell them to read how Jesus talked to folks that was buried in sin and wasn't going to make no change and was just going to do their thing anyhow. So when you think that you're on top of the world and people got to talk sweeter to you, you better get this book out here and start reading. Because Jesus ain't no joke.